Imagine standing under the scorching sun, shoulder to shoulder with thousands of soldiers. Your fate resting entirely on your obedience. One wrong move, and death could be waiting. Welcome to the brutal discipline of the Roman army, where loyalty was tested, fear was weaponized, and the line between survival and execution was razor-thin. The harsh reality of Roman discipline. The Roman army wasn't just an army, it was a machine built on fear and precision. From the moment a recruit stepped onto the training ground, they were no longer civilians, they were soldiers molded by the harshest standards in history. Every day began before sunrise. Soldiers were woken with sharp commands, ordered to run miles in full armor, carrying heavy packs that could crush a weaker man. Mistakes were not forgiven. Stray from the formation, falter in your march, or disobey a direct order, and the punishment was swift. One of the most feared punishments was the infamous decimation. If a unit was found guilty of cowardice or mutiny, Roman commanders would select every 10th soldier by lot and execute them in front of the others. The survivors had no choice but to obey perfectly after witnessing such brutality. Even smaller mistakes carried severe consequences. A soldier who failed in his duties might be beaten by his comrades, forced to carry heavy loads under the blazing sun, or made to stand guard for days with barely any rest. This constant threat of punishment created soldiers who were not just disciplined, they were terrified into excellence. But it wasn't just about fear. The Romans knew that an army built on fear could be unstoppable. Soldiers learned that obeying orders without hesitation could mean the difference between life and death, not just for themselves, but for the entire legion. Training, loyalty, and life on the battlefield. Training in the Roman army was more than just learning how to march or swing a sword. It was a relentless test of endurance, loyalty, and mental toughness. Recruits were pushed to the edge of exhaustion, forced to carry heavy packs for miles, practice combat drills for hours under the scorching sun, and sleep barely a few hours at night. Every command had to be obeyed instantly. Hesitation could be fatal. Even a slight delay in forming ranks or responding to orders could result in punishment, sometimes from your own comrades. This strict discipline created soldiers who moved like a single, unstoppable force on the battlefield. Loyalty was tested in cruel ways. Soldiers could be forced to fight their fellow comrades in mock battles or endure humiliating punishments to prove they would follow orders no matter what. These tests weren't just for show. They built a psychological edge, conditioning men to trust their commanders and their unit above all else. When the Roman legions marched into battle, this discipline became lethal. Every soldier knew their role perfectly. Archers, infantry, and cavalry moved in synchronized precision. Those who faltered risked being trampled by their own comrades or cut down by the enemy. Fear had been turned into a weapon, fear of disobedience, fear of failure, fear of letting the legion down. And yet, this brutal training produced some of the most formidable soldiers in history. Men who could endure unimaginable hardships, follow orders without hesitation, and fight with ruthless efficiency. The Roman army's secret wasn't just strategy or weapons, it was the iron grip of discipline, forged in fear, sweat, and blood. Punishments and shocking stories from the battlefield. The Roman army's discipline didn't stop at training, it followed soldiers into the heart of battle. One famous example comes from the campaign against the rebellious legions in Cisalpine Gaul. A unit that fled during a skirmish faced the terrifying sentence of decimation. Every 10th soldier was executed by his own comrades, right there on the battlefield. The rest had to carry on fighting, haunted by the screams and the fear of the same fate. Another story comes from the Battle of Cannae, where Romans faced Hannibal's Carthaginian forces. Soldiers who broke ranks were often cut down by their fellow legionaries to prevent chaos from spreading. Discipline was a matter of survival, and failure wasn't an option. Those who hesitated endangered not just themselves, but hundreds of their comrades. Even beyond the battlefield, punishments were relentless. A soldier caught sleeping on duty, misplacing his weapon, or failing to maintain his armor could face flogging or public humiliation. Commanders believed that only through fear and strict accountability could an army remain unstoppable. And it worked. These legions marched across continents, conquered nations, and became legends of history. The Roman army's secret weapon wasn't just its swords or shields, it was fear itself, harnessed to create absolute obedience. And while the punishments were brutal, the results were undeniable: an army that was efficient, ruthless, and unmatched in the ancient world. This is the story of the Roman army's brutal discipline. Fear turned into power, and men forged into legends under the harshest conditions imaginable. The psychological edge and legacy of Roman discipline. But the true power of Roman discipline wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Soldiers weren't only trained to obey, they were conditioned to think as one, act as one, and fear failure above all else. This constant pressure created a mindset where hesitation was unthinkable and bravery became second nature. Legionaries learned to suppress fear and doubt. They knew that in the chaos of battle, their survival depended on flawless execution of orders. Every drill, every punishment, every march drilled the lesson deep: loyalty to the legion and obedience to command were more important than life itself. And this psychological edge made the Roman army nearly unstoppable. When other armies broke under pressure, Roman soldiers held their lines. When morale faltered, discipline carried them through. Generals relied on this unyielding obedience to execute complex strategies that would have failed with any ordinary army. The legacy of this brutal discipline echoes through history. Modern military tactics, chain of command principles, and even leadership training can trace their roots back to the lessons learned from Roman legions. Fear, order, and loyalty, these weren't just tools of punishment, they were tools of unmatched power. In the end, the Roman army proved that an army forged in fear could conquer empires, survive centuries, and leave a legacy that still fascinates us today. Powerful because of its weapons, it was powerful because of its discipline. Fear controlled them. Loyalty defined them. And obedience made them unstoppable. That's how ordinary men became legendary soldiers, and how Rome built one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen. But here's the real question. Would you survive in the Roman army?